Scripture, and we see the poverty of spirit all through Scripture. I mean, we see it all over, and let me just give you a few examples. This poverty of spirit, it's the spirit of the prodigal son. You remember that story? You remember Jesus gives this parable, and he says, and I'll just read a small portion of it in Luke 15. The son tells his dad one day, give me my inheritance, I'm out. I just got to go and do it my way. And so he runs out of his money, and in verse 15 it says he went out and he hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country. He's living far from home, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And as he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And his son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate, for my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. It's that moment in verse 17 where he says, he came to himself. He didn't say, I don't deserve to eat pig slop. That's not what he said. He said, what I realize is that my Father has more than this, none of which I deserve, but nonetheless, I'll go to him. It says he came to himself. It was a realization about self. It is a poverty of spirit that lets you come to the Father and say, I don't deserve this. Matter of fact, he said, if you just treat me like a servant, it would be enough. And I like that. The Father doesn't even answer him. He says, look, Father, he prepared the speech, probably rehearsed it his whole way to getting over there. Okay, here we go. Dad, I'm no longer worthy to be your son. I've sinned against heaven and before you. Make me like one of your hired servants. And his dad looks at him and says, bring the calf. Bring the robe. My son is home. His plea was, I don't deserve to be your son. You still are. Matter of fact, now more than ever, because you realize you don't deserve it. There's something necessary, not just nice, about a heart that realizes the graciousness of grace. The unmerited nature of salvation.